First, what's the King proving this season?
That he's really good at basketball. No, in all seriousness, I just want to say one thing. Stephen A., Chuck would absolutely whoop your ass. I think you know that, but I just want to state that for all of America to know Chuck would whoop your ass. King James, he's proving that he can, at the very least, challenge Father Time. You think about what he's doing this year, shooting a career high in three-point percentage, as effective as ever, driving the basketball and scoring at the rim. But here's what really stood out to me last night. Stephen A., who was the most energized player on that floor? The oldest player on that floor. He was more energized than a 23-year-old Zion Williamson. It mattered more to him. So when we talk about LeBron and his skill set and all the great things he does as a basketball player, let's talk about his competitive stamina. Let's talk about the pride that he takes. Let's talk about the joy and the love for the game that he has, rising to the moment. Here in Vegas, in front of basically a pro Lakers crowd, he puts on a show. And it's a little disappointing to me to watch the Pelicans last night. Early on, they showed a teensy bit of fight there in the second quarter. But outside of that, they were a no-show. And so you have the oldest guy on the court, year 21, playing with the most energy, playing with the most passion. And Darvin Ham nailed it. You know, the Lakers feed off of that. And so for him, doing what he's doing right now, the Lakers at 14-9 in fourth place right now in the Western Conference, just 2 games back in the loss column from second place, despite the fact that they're 30th in the league in three-pointers made per game. They're 29th in the league in three-point percentage. This is because of LeBron James. Don't take the greatness for granted.
You're absolutely right. There's a few things that I wanted to throw out there, and I'm not trolling or joking, JJ. But you remember there was a bad experience. I think it was in the bubble when New Orleans got blown out when you were on that team, and I remember you laying on the floor and you were looking at the team with utter disgust because you expected so much. I'm not joking. I mean, Go ahead. I'm sorry. There's a delay, but go ahead.
I was saying I know. I was staring into the abyss at that moment, Stephen A. The abyss of just desperation and the feeling of failure. And the feeling of failure.
Yeah. You were disgusted. And my point is that I applauded that at the time because you were the only one that looked like you cared. And so it reminded me last night because I'm looking at New Orleans and I'm like, how in God's name could you justify coming out with that level of effort? And I was so incredibly disappointed with Zion Williamson because I'm like, you know what? LeBron is there. He's the king. He's a 4-time champion, 4-time league MVP, 10 trips to the NBA Finals. This season alone, I'm just looking at some of the stuff that he's doing right now. Tied for third in the NBA. This is coming into last night. Tied for third in the NBA. 8.4 points per game in the fourth quarter this season. Also shooting 59% from the field in the fourth quarter. Second in the NBA in fast break points per game to Donovan Mitchell. Among the NBA leaders in transition with 6.4 points per game on 71% shooting. This is at age 38, going on age 39 at the end of this month. In his 21st season in the NBA, and he comes out there with the level of passion and fervor, wanting this badly, treating this like it's an NBA Finals game, for crying out loud. And on the other side is a guy that's supposed to be the man-child, that's supposed to be the face of a franchise with the New Orleans Pelicans, and him along with the rest of them came out completely flat and lethargic, damn near disinterested. I'm not going to accuse them of feeling that way. I'm just saying that how they appeared. So it made me really, really disgusted at them, but it elevated my level of appreciation once again for LeBron James because I appreciate the fact, JJ, that he's reminding folks what superstars are supposed to be. Your talent is your talent, and we get that. But the passion, the competitive fervor, the willingness to accept and embrace center stage, understanding that it could very well be about you and you're answering the call. The greatest compliment that I could give LeBron James this morning is that Michael Jordan will always be my number one. That's just where I stand, and I've never budged on it. But it's gotten to the point where I literally am siding with you, JJ, from the standpoint we don't even need to have this discussion. The level of greatness that this man continues to put on display, the level of appreciation that we all should have for him warrants us not having this discussion and literally just sitting back and embracing and enjoying the moments that he's providing. Because I got to be honest with you, when I see some of the people who are supposed to be stars, supposed to be superstars, and the calls they're not answering, it makes me appreciate LeBron James even more for answering the bell.
I think the simplest way, Stephen A., to answer this question, it's very simple. LeBron James is proving that he's still one of the 5 to 10 best players in the world right now at age 38.
Eze, do you think Giannis has a point?
Oh, he absolutely has a point. They're ranked 22nd defensively. They don't resemble the team that they were last year. And they do have players on their team that can produce, but there's a lot to be left. There's a lot left to be desired. And JJ, I'll defer to you because obviously you've watched Milwaukee more than I have this year, even though I've watched them on quite a few occasions. I got to tell you something right now. I'm looking at, for example, pick and roll situations. I was looking at some stats yesterday, and it was talking about how Damian Lillard with Giannis in pick and roll situations, the tandem that they're utilizing, 33 tandems in the NBA have been utilized more than they have been. They're effective when they're utilized, but they're utilized at about 10 times a game, and there's like 33 other tandems that are used more frequently. And actually, Damian Lillard with Brook Lopez is a better tandem in that position rather than Damian Lillard with Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm taking that, JJ, and I'm looking at the arguments that were taking place that made news the other week when Giannis was taken out of the game by the new coach. And then I'm taking into account the reports yesterday of Bobby Portis challenging the coach and the team. I'm highlighting that, looking at what Giannis said to me directly, and I followed up, and he tried to offset it, basically talking about the players and ultimately putting the onus on them because they're the players and they have to execute. But he did not sway away from saying, we're not organized. And Bobby Portis reportedly said, we're not organized. When you hear those words, JJ, when you hear those words, that's coaching. There's no other way around it. That's coaching. Now, when you say the word disorganization, that is not good. And I know that if you're a new coach, I understand you just started your first head coaching job, but it's a bad look to be in this situation. This is Giannis's choice. He could slice it any way he wanted to, but from what I'm being told, you know what? He talked to the coaches. That's the one he picked. That's the one he told the organization he wanted. But they don't seem really to be vibing right now, and it's a challenge to say the least. I don't think it's a good situation, and I think Giannis was right on point, and boy, this man does not play. He calls it like he sees it. He tells it like it is. And it damn near seems like he ain't interested in even being friends with his teammates. He's like, listen, we here to win. We're here to handle business. I'm friends with you when we wear in the same uniform and we doing what we supposed to do. If you're not doing what you're supposed to do, guess what? You might as well be the opponent. That's his attitude, JJ. And I can't knock him for it, but it's not a good look. And they don't look the same team as they did defensively under Mike Budenholzer.
Yeah, when we talk about organization, that's reflected in those pick and roll stats. Stephen A. Brook Lopez has ran more pick and rolls per game with Damian Lillard than Giannis has. And you think about when that trade was made, what did we all envision? We envisioned this incredible two-man game between Damian Lillard, one of the 75 greatest players ever, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, a two-time MVP and a Finals MVP. It was supposed to be unstoppable, and it's been really good. But when you talk about organization offensively, well, that should be your number one play. That should be high volume. They should be in the top 3 or 4 in terms of pick and roll volume duos, right? Easy. So that's reflected there. Now, they still have the number 3 offense in the league. They have the talent. Giannis has been incredible this season. Dame has been incredible in clutch time. So they certainly have talent to overcome some of the disorganization offensively. Where I get frustrated in watching the Milwaukee Bucks and where that disorganization is reflected the most to me is on the defensive end. And yes, they lost Drew Holiday, but Drew Holiday is not the reason that they went from a top 5 defense. He's not the only reason, I should say, from a top 5 defense to a bottom 3rd defense. They're 22nd right now defensively. The reason is they're disorganized on that end. They give up a ton of transition points. They're terrible getting matched up in transition. They give up a ton out of the pick and roll. They give up a ton out of blow-bys. Their schemes are wrong. They've oscillated between drop coverage and blitzing and hedging. Like, if I'm a player on that team on the defensive side of the ball night to night. When I watch them play, I say to myself, I have no idea what I'm doing tonight. I have no idea what I'm doing tonight. So their personnel has to be better in terms of, Giannis touched on that. They have to be better in terms of winning their one-on-one matchups, staying in front of the basketball. They give up as many blow-bys as any team in the league right now, which leads to points at the rim. They're not defending the rim the same way they have in the past. And so in terms of the organization piece, to me, fundamentally, they need to be better defensively and be more organized defensively. And yes, you are correct, Stephen A. You are 100% correct. Some of that is on the players, but a lot of that is on coaching. And Adrian Griffin put in a hard spot. There's not many coaches in their first head coaching job that go to a team that has won a championship within the last 3 seasons and brings in Damian Lillard and has the expectation of winning another championship. Most coaches that get that first job, they're in a rebuilding situation. Maybe they're middle of the pack. But to be in this situation, Adrian Griffin has to be better. I said it. Adrian Griffin has to be better.